When I was 14, there was a girl at my school who I'm going to call Anna. Now, Anna was known as, at that time, a tough, hard girl who liked to fight. And she was from the north, and we were a soft southern school. So a lot of people were scared of her. And one day she tried to start a fight with me. And my best friend, Charlotte, jumped in and diffused the fight. A couple of days later, we were in the changing rooms at school after PE, and Anna jumps on Charlotte and starts beating Charlotte up in the changing room. And there's about 20 of us there who saw this. And while my friend was being beaten up by Anna, I stood there watching, and I did nothing. I watched my friend getting hurt, my friend who tried to protect me, and I didn't do anything. And, even as I'm talking about this, my palms have started to sweat and I've gone really hot. Because for me, there is so much shame attached to this memory, even now. And I think the only reason I can talk about it is that I've actually found some compassion for myself. How I felt in that moment was terror. I remember feeling completely rooted to the spot. And there is no part of me that feels like it's okay to stand by and watch your friend get hurt when in theory you could help. So it goes against every moral fiber of my being. The incredible thing is, Charlotte never said a word to me about it afterwards, never said a word about the fact I didn't help, but I felt like such a coward. And if you're somebody else who has that freeze response to threat, that your go-to response isn't fight, it isn't flight, but it's to just freeze. It feels like you just go passive. Maybe you can relate to what this feels like. The thing is, when our nervous system is so activated because it perceives a threat, our body is making the decision for us. We're not able to think clearly in that moment. And this includes people with the fight response, because people who have the fight response, they move towards the danger. And so as somebody who freezes, I can't help but look at that and think that that's bravery and that's courage. There's still a part of me that feels like that. Even though I have several people in my life who have the fight response, I've spoken to a couple of my friends about it and what it's like for them. And they're saying to me things like, Sarah, it's not bravery, it's not courage, it's not a decision. And actually, they feel like it's a problem because it makes them prone to recklessness, to making reckless decisions and putting themselves at risk. There's still a part of me in my own self-judgment that feels like, well, at least you're doing something, right? You're willing to put yourself at risk. But here's the thing, we don't choose it. We don't choose our response. So whatever your nervous system response is to threat, I think for many of us, if we go back into our childhood, we can see how that may have developed. For me, in the environment I grew up in, freeze was absolutely the safest response. Freeze was the way to diffuse situations and stop them from getting worse. And so my body has learned that, even though my mind knows that in a situation such as the one I described, freeze is not what I would want to do. I think as well, for us freezers, for those of us that freeze, we are much more prone to suppression and repression. So somebody with the fight response could have a blazing row about something, and when it's all out in the open and it's done, they feel really calm and they can move on like that. But if you're someone that you've frozen, you're in a disagreement, but part of you's frozen, you haven't mobilized the energy, then even when the dispute, even if it's a minor conflict, even though it may have been resolved, it feels like you carry it with you still in your body for a while. And then maybe people think that you are being sulky or you should just be able to get over it. Again, this is your body making that choice. And so as a therapist myself, I have spent many years in therapy, talking about my childhood, understanding myself. And I truly believed, working through this at the moment, that I had forgiven so much. I'd made sense of it. I'd been able to see it from the other person's point of view, and that I had let so much stuff go, and that I had truly let it go. And then something happened at the weekend, and 30 years of repressed and suppressed anger came to the surface that I didn't even know was there. I made a very calculated decision to release the anger towards the actual source of the anger. And here's the interesting thing. So I don't want to get into the details of it because I need to protect the people involved because we're still working this stuff through. But the fascinating thing to me that I had no idea about is that after I had done that, a weight that I didn't even know I was carrying in my body seemed to lift. And I felt so much lighter and peaceful, when what I would have expected was that if I'd let that anger out, that I would be a frightened, shaking mess. Here's the point that I want to make about the freeze response, is that the energy gets stuck, whatever that energy might be. So it could be anger, it doesn't have to be anger. When I was 26, I had my nose broken in a volatile work situation. Someone headbutted me. And afterwards, I wasn't in pain. Immediately afterwards, I wasn't in pain. I didn't feel psychologically stressed or distressed about it. I was made physically safe very quickly. But for over an hour afterwards, I could not stop shaking. And I was so embarrassed because everybody was seeing me shake. But I couldn't stop it. It was like my body had other ideas. Now I understand about trauma and actually the importance of shaking. We see this in the animal kingdom. Once the animal has experienced a threat, they get away from it, they shake. It's a way of resetting and re-regulating your nervous system. And the fact that I shook meant that I could go into similar situations again and my body didn't react with fear. There was no lasting anxiety or triggers for me after that moment because my body had done an incredible thing by processing that trauma in the healthiest way it could have done. I think the freeze response is also often the response that happens due to a lack of power. So it's a response that can make sense when presented with something or someone that is more powerful than you, that you cannot fight and you cannot outrun. Because on reflecting on this video, I thought, how is it that I spent 16 years as a police officer and I did throw myself into violent situations? If I've got this freeze response, how was I actually able to do that? And I think it's because there was a sense of power and protection and knowing that I was being backed up by the biggest gang in London. And the only reason I have now been able to mobilize this old energy, it's been really humbling for me because I really believe in the concept of forgiveness, not for the other person, but to free ourselves. Because if we forgive, we experience that freedom, we experience that peace. The other person doesn't even need to know they've been forgiven. That truly sits with my personal values for myself. I don't judge anybody else for not doing it because I don't think it's a moral thing. But whilst I thought and really believed and kind of felt like I'd forgiven, my body had other ideas. My body was still holding on to something. I think this is why our relationship with our bodies is so important, because they carry information. So sometimes when you are behaving in ways that you do not understand and seems to go against what you actually value and what you feel like you believe, it could be because your nervous system and your body has other ideas. Whilst that might feel like a pain, I think our bodies are just trying to keep us honest. Because when we suppress and repress, we're trying to convince ourselves that something's true, and our bodies are saying, hang on a second, there's something else here that you're missing, that you're not paying attention to. That is the role of our emotions, is to get our attention, to try and point us towards something. And how often do we ignore what our bodies are trying to tell us? But our bodies can get stuck in certain nervous system states. We can be stuck in anxiety, we can be stuck in depression. But it means your body is telling you something. There's something to be paid attention to in your nervous system. We are only scratching the surface about what we understand about bodies and the wisdom of the body. And somatic work and somatic healing, all of this stuff is on the rise. It's becoming more popular as people resonate with this stuff. They're like, why do I feel so conflicted about these things? I think this, but I feel that. There's still so much we don't know. We do know that mobilizing stuck energy is helpful. We do know that the body seems to hold on to emotional events, trauma, all the really early conditioned stuff gets stored in our bodies. Even talking, I think, helps to mobilize energy. How many times have you talked about something that's been upsetting and you feel better for talking about it? You feel calmer. And also being able to go, back when I was 14, my body made that decision for me. And my value system is like, that was the wrong choice. and that those two things can coexist. I have compassion for the fact in that moment I didn't seem to be able to access a different choice, and I can hold on to the fact that that still doesn't sit okay with me, but I understand it. And also, I mean, I haven't spoken to my best friend Charlotte for years, but if she ever sees this or hears about this video, I'm really sorry, Charlotte, I let you down. And on that note, any of my fellow people that relate to this has been a difficult video to make. I feel like I know I can't be alone in this experience, but I also know that I need to feel, or would like to, not feel alone in it either. And I'm talking about it because I know that we're rarely alone in our experiences, and that that's helpful, that shared experience and connection. Anyway, thank you for watching this. I'll see you on the next video.